Hello everyone, here's another analysis. This time the essay that I'm going to analyze is called "The Contextualized and Meaningful Use of Technology Can Favor the Development of Cognitive and Linguistic Skills." I think this is a very nice title. It very properly synthesizes your position and to some extent the arguments you will show and develop. In your introduction paragraph, you have this statement. Somewhere nowadays, but this is introduction. Nowadays, the use of TIC, well, remember in English is not TIC but ICT technologies, has caused multiple practices to access to information management and development of cognitive and linguistic knowledge and skills in many sources, textual formats, and multimodal interaction and intertextuality relationships. This is a very interesting introduction. The only problem I see is that there are too many ideas developed in a somewhat convoluted way, such that it is difficult to make sense of them. I propose the following reconfiguration of your first sentence. Nowadays, the use of ICT technologies has given rise to multiple different kinds of practices to access and manage information. This has led to the development of new cognitive and linguistic skills in many textual formats, multimodal interactions, and intertextual relationships. So notice how I have changed caused to given rise to. I have proposed that you use lead into, has led to. These are the kinds of expressions that are typical in essays, and they show that you've been working for quite some time on essay writing skills. But even with the changes, the final words are still rather obscure. What should we understand by multimodal interactions and intertextuality relationships? It is okay to throw some technical terms here and there, but we should always aim at communicative achievement, which is another way to say make our speech as clear and understandable to everyone else as we possibly can. And well, this first sentence is rather difficult to understand because of the technical terms that you are using, multimodal intertextuality. So and in fact that's going to be a problem that you show throughout the rest of your essay, so you have to work on that. Next sentence, this essay aims to show that contextualized and meaningful practices of technology can favor the development of cognitive and linguistic skills. This second sentence is repeating to quite some extent the idea from the previous sentence, but this second sentence is clearer and more understandable for sure. I can see that you have added the concept of contextualized and meaningful practices, but it is repeating the idea of cognitive and linguistic skills development, which was already in the first sentence. There are pros and cons of doing this. Yet, on the whole, I do not suggest that you do it. I will not suggest any further editing for now to this sentence, but I do suggest that you be more alert to these sorts of details, avoid repetition of ideas. It is true that the topic of your essay is cognitive and linguistic skills development, but there are better ways to keep your topic in track. I will not go into how to achieve this latter, as I do not want to overextend the analysis of this second sentence. Third sentence, this position is controversial because in everyday practices there are uses that favor the deterioration of the ability of thinking due to the use of technology. This third sentence is a bit confusing. What position is controversial? The position that contextualized and meaningful practices of technology can favor the development of cognitive and linguistic skills, as you were saying in your first and second sentences. I could call that an idea rather than a position. I do appreciate the fact that you're trying to state your personal position in an overt and clear way in the third sentence, as suggested in the last PPT I sent you. But you will have to refine the writing strategies you use to meet such end. I am not saying it is wrong, but I do mean to say that there is plenty of room for improvement in this regard. The word uses, here in red, is also quite ambiguous. A quick suggestion I can give you to state your personal position for now is the following. Technology can favor the development of cognitive and linguistic skills, especially in contextualized and meaningful settings. So yeah, you need to find a way to state your position in a more straightforward way. Therefore, it is essential to characterize the advantages and disadvantages involved. This is a nice transition sentence that you typed. Next, on this occasion, this essay emphasizes the favorable aspect of contextualized and significant use of technological resources in order to management of information and knowledge. Nice final sentence. I only recommend removing the words and morphological elements that I have crossed out above on this occasion. And, well, instead of management of, just say to manage information. Now you show us your 3 body paragraphs, each one with 1 topic sentence and 2 to 3 supporting details and 1 concluding sentence. The contextualized meaningful management of information and technology encourages the development of strategies that complement, enrich, and strengthen thinking abilities. Whoa, what a nice topic sentence. Well done. Good lexical repertoire, great assertiveness, impressive communicative achievement. I'm really impressed. In the first phase of cognitive development, technological resources can expand capacities and access to multiple sources of information. Whoa, again. Strong, logical, and compelling idea. You still have to prove it is true, but it seems pretty solid the way it looks here. This development is achieved as long as there is a supportive attitude through these materials to expand the possibilities of critical access to information. Well done again. Yes, pretty good. In this way, searches for data and textual sources are extensions of our brain capacities as a resource to expand and strengthen the collection of knowledge of the individuals instead of replacing them. Excellent. Yes, you're doing very well up until here. In addition, technological resources can be used for creative searches from various sources. I like your connector in addition, but now it's starting to sound somewhat repetitive. Searches and searches, searches and searches. I mean, you've mentioned this, I'm not sure how many times, but more than once above and here. Next, for creative management of access to information, each will need to critically select what we want to consult. Just to erase what I crossed out and immediately your sentence feels more direct and assertive, we'll need to critically select what we want to consult. As I explained some time ago, we Latin Americans have trouble to avoid overextending, and we need to make an effort to keep things as concise as we possibly can. Unless there is good reason not to. Thus, critical access to textual sources depends in principle on creativity, ability to select and analyze data and knowledge. It is inappropriate to leave this work only to softwares. I more or less understand your idea, but I think there is a coherence problem somewhere in this sentence. On the one hand, it's not clear to me what role creativity plays on critical access to textual sources, as you are suggesting. Very probably you are right. I'm not saying you're wrong to think about it, but your idea has been poorly expressed, and now we, the readers, have a bit of trouble to make sense of your idea. Critical access to textual sources depends on the ability to select data. That's confusing for me. And I guess for many others, and that's not good. Text should be typed and crafted to be read by others, and not just by myself and a few ones, unless you have some reasons to restrain access to your ideas to yourself or a few others. Thus, in the management of resources for linguistic development, for example, students face a variety of sources that require consultation, evaluation, and practice to promote knowledge. Two parts of this sentence are somewhat obscure, the ones I highlighted in red. You need to rethink how to convey those or that idea. Second body paragraph, in the creative, contextualized, and critical management of collections, takes ICTs, please. Encourage the development of strategies to select information through intertextuality. I'm sure you have a very interesting idea there. Sorry. Oops, I don't know what I typed here. Yeah. But you have not defined more clearly what we are to understand by creative management, contextualized management, and critical management. I can try to make sense of it all on my own, but you as a writer should help me more to get there. So yeah, this is confusing. In this way, students can establish relationships between different textual sources to create a contextualized development of information. Students can connect different sources to give rise to contextualized learning. Well, I just rephrased your sentence. I changed it. I guess this is sort of what you wanted to say. I know that the rubrics I sent you or I showed you, I made available for you in Thinkific. They ask for a wide lexical range and an ample variety of grammatical structures, and I guess that's what you were trying to do there. But you have to find a balance between a vivid language performance and moderation. I hope what I'm saying makes sense for everyone. Next, to the extent that multimedia and multimodal resources allow access to various text sources, web pages, and interaction sites, students can develop intellectual abilities and strategies to access and selection of interrelated sources of information and knowledge. Maybe it's me, but I think you have not defined properly multimodal or at all multimodal resources. I guess you expect us all to be sufficiently literate on that matter, but truth be told, some of us are rather illiterate on that subject. So you need to clarify those terms for some of us, many of us, I think. Likewise, information technologies are resources that, used in a contextualized and meaningful way, offer the development of intellectual capacities for dialogic interaction, since they allow to access to information and contact with many users on the internet. Whoa, what a nice follow-up to the preceding ideas. Yeah. This is pretty well done. Third body paragraph, information technologies also encourage the development of cognitive abilities to enrich the collections of multimedia and multimodal contextual genres. Cognitive abilities enrich collections of multimedia? I think you need to explain this better. Okay, I'll talk about that by the end of the analysis. Thus, in contextualized, meaningful situations, we cannot expand our collections of repertoires of textuality with many access possibilities. I think you have been reflecting on these concepts for quite some time and expect us to have a general understanding of these notions, but most of us are not literate enough to adequately interpret them. So in the future, you ought to find ways to express your ideas in a more accessible way. In this way, technology offers many possibilities of formats and textual uses related to informativity, intertextuality, and dialogic relations. Again, your terminology is somewhat obscure, because I studied linguistics myself. I have a general apprehension of the terms intertextuality and dialogic, but most other readers will struggle to get your point. As a result, a TOEFL, Cambridge, or GRE examiner will most probably punish your score due to this communicative underachievement. So bear that in mind. Not keep, but bear that in mind. In the future, to improve your writing skills, of course, we can establish that whoever says that technological resources deteriorate our intellectual capacities is being limited to uses that lack meaningful and creative contextualization. This is a nice sentence, well said, straight and meaningful idea. Pretty well done. We are all responsible for our own potential to develop thinking, and we have the option of using these tools for the development of cognitive and linguistic abilities. A nice last sentence for your last body paragraph. So now the conclusions paragraph. Finally, we can establish that intellectual, cognitive, and linguistic development through the support of communication and information technologies depends on the attitudes for their use. Excellent. You have restated your thesis. Bravo for this. Your score could surely increase in a real test thanks to this macro structural accomplishment. Yeah, pretty well done. We can benefit from them intellectually and cognitively by using them as a support and a favorable extension of our natural abilities, for example, information management, creative establishment of intertextuality, relationships, and dialogic interactivity. The first part is really good, the one in black, but the part in red, in contrast, is again rather vague and calls for betterment and rethinking. You need to improve this part in red. Likewise, its use favors the development of compensatory skills and the collection of linguistic repertoires in various multimedia and multimodal possibilities and many textual genres. This sentence looks like you were in a hurry and did not take the time to edit it. That may well happen to any one of us, as you could see in a couple of parts of my analysis here. But I still have to point it out that this looks like you didn't reread what you had typed. So be sure to benefit from creative uses and practices that involve your intellectual capacities and the possibility to enrich with them with technologies for information and communication. Nice final punchline. It is still somewhat unclear what we are to understand by creative uses and practices, but I think we get the overall point. So, my final comments. All in all, you have a pretty respectable essay. Nevertheless, the fact that you did not appropriately define the core concepts of your document compromises its overall value in the eyes of an examiner. One little critical fact that not many people know is that very frequently EFL tests examiners are under too much stress trying to assess too many tests. As a result, more often than you might think, they do not spend as much time as you might expect on the fine points of your essay. So oftentimes a considerable proportion of your score will be the result of general impressions rather than detailed aspects of it. So failing to define core concepts of your essay will result in a bad general impression. I am not saying you did wrong, I'm just saying you need to work on that particular aspect if you want to improve your chances of gaining a higher score in an EFL test. I hope these observations help. Well, see you later. Yours truly, Sergio.